to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? We're hitting up the recap of UFC Vegas 62. Was another profitable night here for the teller. In fact, it was a clean sweep. Now, it was a very tricky card from a betting standpoint. I had two of my original 4 plays fall off the card. One of them fell off the day of the weigh-ins. Another one a little bit earlier in the week. They were both plays that I was very upset to see fall off the card. I like the lines that we had locked in. We'll talk about that here in a second. But overall, as all you guys know, this wasn't a giant card. This wasn't a card that a lot of people had marked on their calendars. This is just a little appetizer for the big event that's taking place this upcoming Saturday. And you guys can catch my prediction video for UFC 280 here on the channel right now. You guys can check that out. It's going to be a huge card, and you guys know that already. So, but yeah, let's take a look at UFC Vegas 62. A lot of you guys want to know what we were eyeing, what we were targeting from a betting perspective. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about the 2 plays that I had that fell off the card. And the first was Neil Magny to defeat Daniel Rodriguez. I thought that I was surprised to see where that line was. It was almost a pick'em, very slight lean on Magny. I think I had him locked in at -125. You could have got him anywhere from that -130 line down, depending on the book. But after the performance that D-Rod just had, I don't know, man. I mean, I like D-Rod, but I'm a fan of what Neil Magny brings to the game. He's been doing it for a long time. He has great cardio. He has a ridiculous reach for the weight class. He has decent striking. He's a game fighter. I really felt confident that that was a fight that Magny was going to take, and I threw 4 units at that. The fight fell off the card. Our other play was Askarov, which I had locked in at -190, and that line really went up all throughout the week. He was in the lower -200 range, unfortunately, up to the point where Askarov had a botched weight cut. They still offered him the fight at a catch weight, and he still didn't want the fight. So obviously, it wasn't the right time for Askarov to be fighting in the cage. So it is what it is. Maybe it's better off that fight fell off. I mean, he obviously had something going on. But at the same time, stylistically, I felt very confident that Askarov, a prime Askarov, a Askarov that we know, when he's in the cage doing his thing the right way, I think he would have taken out Brandon Royval with his wrestling and with his technical abilities, as Royval would have been throwing the wild stuff at him. So a little disappointed to see that play fall off as well. And that was another 4-unit play. So after that, we still had one original play, and then we threw together a last-minute play the day of the weigh-ins, which I'll get to here in a second. So in the first fight, we had Pete Rodriguez taking on Mike Jackson. Pete Rodriguez goes out there, starches Mike Jackson. You guys know I was extremely happy to witness this type of knockout upon Mike Jackson, finally ending the chapter of Mike the Fib Jackson, a fighter that has just been lingering around the UFC for so long, ever since the CM Punk fight. It was just kind of a weird situation. I believe contractually or just kind of in a strange way, he was able to hang on for a long time. He wasn't a UFC caliber fighter. Pete Rodriguez puts an end to that. We should no longer have to see this face ever again. So I'm very happy for that. And you know what? I was happy for Pete Rodriguez as well, because Pete goes in there, gets another knockout. All of his victories come by way of knockout. He's an exciting fighter. He has a lot of experience as an amateur. I think that, of course, he has to work on some things, but he's a fun fighter to watch, and I hope that he continues to grow, and maybe we see him hang around in the UFC. I mean, time will tell. Victory over Jackson doesn't really prove to me that you're a UFC caliber fighter, but he is a tough dude. Who do we see him being matched up with next? I don't know what's the deal with Mickey Gall. Is Mickey Gall cut from the UFC at this point in time? I know he's been losing quite a bit of fights. I think he's still on the roster. Excuse me for not knowing that right now, but if you want to match him up with Mickey Gall, or I know Mickey Gall's coming off a loss, and you don't typically see that type of situation there. A fight that probably makes a lot more sense is the Orion Kosi fight. Orion Kosi coming off that victory over Blood Diamond. I think that you could see Pete Rodriguez taking on Orion Kosi in both of those men's next fight. I think that's the fight that actually makes the most sense, and that's the fight that I would do. But if Mickey Gall somehow gets another fight, I wouldn't mind to see Mickey Gall versus Pete Rodriguez as well. Those are the fights that I'm looking at in regards to that match there. Tatsuro Tayara defeats CJ Vergara via armbar. Now, the line was a little high on Tayara there, so no action on him or anything like that. Same with Rodriguez, but I thought this was a very impressive performance by Tatsuro Tayara in the sense that, once again, he shows that his ground game is pretty high level. His jiu-jitsu is high level. The way that he was able to take the back of Vergara, locking that body triangle from the back, and he wasn't just sitting there milking the round, trying to take a decision. The way he went after the armbar, I really, really enjoyed that, and I think that he's a true threat to anybody in the division. He's still extremely young, and I'm very excited to see who he will be matched up with next. So let's go take a look over at the flyweight rankings, and let's see if we can find him a matchup here. Let's see here. So we got the flyweight division. Tatsuro Tayara currently on Tapology. Now, I don't know if they adjusted this as after him getting that finish there, but right now you would see Tayara right around the 23rd ranked fighter on Tapology's flyweight rankings. You see a lot of men ahead of him already have fights coming up, so nothing really going on there. Tyson Nam doesn't have a fight booked as of now. He's coming off that big win over Ode Osborne. That is a fight that definitely sticks out to me. Sumadarji's coming off a loss. Tim Elliott coming off a victory, coming off that Tager Ulanbekov fight. That's another fight that makes a lot of sense. And then again, you see a lot of fighters with fights ahead of them here. David Dvorak coming off a loss. I think without a doubt, his next fight should be either the veteran Tim Elliott, which I would love to see, and I think he would really shine against Tim Elliott down on the ground. Tim Elliott makes a lot of mistakes, and I think that Tayara would capitalize on that. I would love to see that matchup. I would love to see him thrown in there with Tim Elliott. If not that fight, though, Tyson Nam is deserving of a big name fight like that as well. So those are the two men that I see Tayara facing off with next. One of those two men. So now we're talking some official action here on the Teller side of things. Our first play does hit. Piera Rodriguez, or as I like to call her, P-Rod, defeats Sam Hughes via unanimous decision. A little bit of different scorecards from the three judges, but all of them do give 2 of the 3 rounds to Piera Rodriguez. One judge differed as far as the first round compared to the third or whatnot, but I thought Piera definitely did more than enough to get the job done. I like the way she was mixing things up, getting the fight down to the mat as well. Piera Rodriguez is a fighter that, to me, that is very well-rounded. She's grounded as a fighter. She's very disciplined and very technical. I like some things that she brings to the table. She's very tough. Sam Hughes, I had some questions about her, and I was willing to fade her in a spot like this. Now, from a betting perspective, I locked in Piera Rodriguez at -185 earlier in the week. I was still willing to take that line. That line came down. You could have grabbed her even as low as -160 or so, 165. I really didn't mind it. Even at the -185 line, I felt confident this was a fight she was going to take. Threw 3 units at it. We do hit that play there. It was a great way to start the card off. And again, that was one of my original plays. I do have another play coming up that I threw together last minute after we lost the first 2. But Piera Rodriguez gets the victory there over Sam Hughes. She needs to prove more, yes. I mean, Sam Hughes is not the biggest opponent to get a victory over. And her next fight, I would like to see her face off with Tabitha Ricci, who on Tapology is ranked just a little bit higher than her. Ricci coming off 2 victories over Poliana Viana and Maria Oliveira. Of course, the victory, the loss in her UFC debut against Menifield, the girl that's fighting this upcoming weekend. Not the worst loss to have on your resume. I think Tabitha Ricci is shown to be a promising fighter. I would like to see Piera Rodriguez tested against her in her next fight. And if it's not her, maybe you see her versus Luma Legbunmi, maybe, depending on what's going on from a matchup standpoint with the division. But big shout out to Piera Rodriguez for getting the job done. Joe Anderson, Brito, goes in there and makes quick work of the UFC newcomer Lucas Alexander, who took the fight on short notice. Shout out to Lucas Alexander for stepping up, going in there, facing off with this savage like Brito. Again, Brito's original opponent, of course, Melsik Bagdasarian would have been a much more game opponent. That was a fight that I really wanted to see. I'm hoping that they put that fight together as far as Brito's next fight. Hopefully they worked it out, because that's a fight that would be a lot more closely contested, in my opinion. Jacob Malcoon defeats Nicholas Maximov via unanimous decision, 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Pretty much dominates Maximov. At this point in time, any type of hype that Maximov had is completely out the window. If you guys remember when he was coming off Dana White's Contender Series, he beat a man that was pretty much a heavyweight fighter. He had some type of hype on him. People talk about his grappling abilities. Of course, he does train with Nate Diaz and whatnot. So a lot of hype on him in that aspect. But coming off these 2 losses, I think that we could take a giant step back on Nicholas Maximov. Now, I am a little disappointed in myself because you guys remember in the breakdown, I was very close to taking Malcoon, but I didn't. I did pick Maximov. I edged Maximov in a very close fight. I told everybody and I said the value was on Malcoon from a betting standpoint. So hopefully nobody was touching Maximov as far as from a betting standpoint. All right, I think I made that clear. But a little disappointed in myself for not picking Malcoon and potentially even target him as a play. Obviously, there was a clear path to victory for him. He's a tough dude. He really closes the distance very well. He's a stellar grappler. And he's a tough dude. I think stylistically he can give a lot of guys problems in the division. He's working on his craft. He's becoming a more dangerous fighter. And just again, real quick, when it comes to Maximov, you guys know, I put together a little post on Instagram. I was kind of poking some fun at Maximov, listening to him talk in the lead up to the fight, the way that he talks like Nate Diaz, the way that he sounds like Nate Diaz. To me, it's a little bit cringeworthy. My radar was kind of going off. I feel like he's a little bit of an imposter, in my opinion. I said it almost sounded like he was purposely even talking with a lisp, trying to be like Nate Diaz so much. I'm not so well versed with people from California. I know people from Cali and whatnot, but I've been out there before back in the day, but I don't know a lot of people from Cali. And supposedly people were saying that's kind of how they all talk out there. That's kind of like the accent, like the cliche accent of a dude from that area. But to me, I was just catching vibes that he idolizes Nate Diaz, which I get. You train with the dude and whatnot, but tone it back a little bit. Try to be yourself a little bit. But if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, listen to the interview, and it was literally the dude was trying to be and sound like Nate Diaz. And I don't know. He goes out there, takes the defeat there. Jacob Malcoon, on the other hand, a very, very professional fighter. As far as who do I want to see him face off with next? I would like to see him take on Punahele Soriano. It's a little bit of a stylistic clash there. Soriano throws the big shots in the feet. Malcoon likes to close the distance. But although we saw he was working on his jab looked very good. I think that he could actually give Soriano some trouble there. And I think that that's really the fight to make at this point in time. Soriano coming off the Dalche Lungambula victory. And I see that being the next matchup for both those men. And then we got Mana Martinez, who defeats Brandon Davis. This was my last added official play to the card. Now I'll keep it real with you guys. I did want to avoid putting this play on Mana Martinez from the beginning. He was kind of my backup play when I had my other plays locked in, the ones I told you that fell apart. But again, I'm not going to just have one official play locked in a card. I want to have a little bit more action out there. So yes, I did throw this play together last minute after we lost the last 2. I did believe that Mana Martinez would give Brandon Davis some issues in the feet based on the fact that Brandon Davis is very stiff with his striking, and I like the fact that Mana Martinez is just a little bit more loosey-goosey. He throws spinning attacks. He's a little bit more lighter on his feet, likes to whip the leg kicks, and I thought that he could outpoint Brandon Davis. Now, it was a very close matchup. It did play out very closely. I wasn't really crazy about the play as I was watching it play out. I thought that we probably would have edged the fight there, but it was pretty close. And at the end of the day, he gets his hand raised. We had a 2.5 unit play on Mana Martinez, got him at -160, and we got the clean sweep from an official play standpoint. We made some good money on the card, so I can't complain there. Mana Martinez, not overly impressed with him. I know a lot of people were raving about James Krause's coaching and whatnot. If I'm being honest about all that, I'm getting a little annoyed about hearing about that. James Krause is a good dude. I had him on the show. I interviewed him and whatnot. He's a solid coach. Sometimes I do believe it's a little bit overhyped. As of recently, they're talking about the fact that he does these interviews with his fighters, and he interviews them, and he kind of gets an understanding of who they are. This way he knows how to corner them and whatnot, which I think's awesome. It's cool, but I don't like the fact that some of the media and whatnot, they try to make it seem like he's some type of rocket scientist, excuse me. That's, to me, seems like something that you should do, right? I mean, if I was a head coach, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm not the brightest guy out there, but I mean, that to me, that seems like something that is pretty much common sense. If I was running a gym and I was training a bunch of fighters, I most definitely would be implementing those same types of things. I mean, I don't think that all these coaches are just straight up, hard heads out there that don't think outside the box. So I get a little bit annoyed with everyone trying to make it seem like James Krause is just this articulate genius of a trainer. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hating, but don't get me wrong. When I'm backing a fighter, I love the fact that James Krause is in the corner, but tone it down a bit. But Mana Martinez, need to see way more for him. He's coming off that victory now. Before he had the loss to Ronnie Lawrence, he's always a fun fighter to watch, but I think that he does have some major holes in his game. And even though he gets the job done, I think my respect and my backing of him even drops a little bit as far as from a skill level. I think there's a lot of fighters that will give him problems. You see Ayman Zahabi, who's coming off that victory over Ricky Tercios. He's right above him, but I would have no problem with that fight. Guido Canetti also coming off 2 victories. I would love to see that fight. And I think both of those fighters would give Mana Martinez some problems. They're a lot more technical than Mana. Mana is he's a little bit too loosey-goosey with his striking, and I think that the more technical fighters will pick him apart. So you guys, I got to call it how it is. Even when a fighter brings in money, I got to call it out how it is. Alonzo Menifield gets the knockout over Misha Circanov. Of course, again, we were on Alonzo here too, but there was, in my opinion, there was potential for some danger. If Misha Circanov would have really used the grappling and push Menifield against the cage. We saw William Knight stifle Alonzo like that, but that was not the case. Alonzo Menifield doing what he does best, landing those big shots, getting the knockout, got a devastating knockout over Misha Circanov. And Circanov, man, at this point, I don't know if he's going to be getting his walking papers or whatnot, but he's just been having a really, really tough road over the last couple of years. And in the meantime, Menifield is just sharpening his game more and more as he really looks to make a run in the light heavyweight division. I am excited to pull up the light heavyweight rankings here because I think that Menifield is proving to be a great addition to the division. So going into this matchup here, Alonzo Menifield was currently ranked, and again, this isn't just UFC rankings. This is the entire light heavyweight mixed martial arts rankings. Menifield was ranked 24. Going into this fight, I don't believe these are adjusted immediately, so I'm not sure about that. But ahead of him, you got Azamat Murzakanov. That is a fight that would really be a fun one, in my opinion. Murzakanov coming off the victory over Devin Clark and Tafan and Chukwi. Why not match him up with Menifield next? But you also got Nick Negamariano. Nick Negamariano is actually matched up with Carlos Olberg on the UFC 281 card. Now, that is a fight I really would have liked to have seen, but he is booked, so that's not going to be a fight that you see next. To me, it's really looking like Azamat Murzakanov is the next fight to make. Without a doubt, that's the next fight to make, unless you want to match him up with Tyson Pedro. I know Tyson Pedro is a little bit of a step back on the Tapology rankings, which doesn't mean all. I think that is a good fight. Tyson Pedro has been having a lot of success since he's made his return. I would love to see Alonzo Menifield matched up with Tyson Pedro. In fact, I think that's the fight I even like more so than the Murzakanov fight. So that actually gets me up right there. I would love to see that fight, so I hope that is next. All right, and sliding up the card, Rafael Sansao takes out Victor Henry. Obviously, a big spoiler. Sansao was the biggest dog on the card, I do believe, right? The biggest underdog. Definitely to get the job done here. And Victor Henry, although he had success against Raoni Barcelos, which I don't know how he did what he did against Barcelos, especially when you see Barcelos looking good again in his last fight. Victor Henry was just his night against Barcelos, and it was just not his night against Sansao. Major respect to Sansao at this point in the game, still going in there and taking out fighters that are on the up and up. Sansao just such a professional. And let's see who are we gonna match up Sansao with next? We'll slide over to the bantamweight division. It feels funny to even really talk about who's next for Sansao. I'll be honest with you guys, and I think a lot of you guys would agree. I was kind of anticipating the end of the road for Sansao, as I thought he was going to taste defeat against Henry. Sansao ranked 18, still getting a lot of respect in the game. I mean, you see Adrian Yanez right above him. I think that it's time that Adrian Yanez gets some bigger name fighters. And although Sansao's lost a lot of fights as of recently, he is a fighter that's name holds weight. Okay, it definitely holds weight. I mean, he's up there with the Pedro Munozes of the world. These are fighters that have been around the block for a long time. Their names hold weight. I could see him also fighting with excuse me. No, I'm trying to remember now. Pedro Munoz. Did him and Sansao fight back in the day? I'm trying to remember if they fought. So excuse me if they did. I don't think they have fought. I would love to see Pedro Munoz match up with the Sansao as well. I mean, that's a fight that you could do. But a Sansao, always a class act, and big ups to him for getting the job done there. Dusko Turovich takes out Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright with a little bit of early success with the takedown and whatnot. And eventually Turovich reverses the fight there and gets him down to the mat and starts ground and pounding him, kind of breaks him. And that was a fight that was very much needed for Dusko there. And Dusko got that finish in the second round, 3 minutes and 12 seconds into the round, and really broke Jordan Wright. I'm still not extremely high on Turovich, if I'm being honest. And if you want to talk about, what's next for the middleweight, Turovich, I could sense him getting finished in his next fight. That's what's next for him, no matter who he's matched up with. Again, I'm not crazy about his defense. Let's take a look, man. Let's see if we can find Turovich ranked anywhere in the top 50 over here. Dusko. We got Dusko. Come on, he's coming up over here. And again, we just took a look at Malcoon. Did I pass him? Here, real quick, guys. We'll cut to the chase. Dusko Turovich right now is ranked the 51st. Okay, so he's gonna be one back on the next page, so no need to slide down to the next page. So you got Roman Kopylov, who's coming off that victory over Alessio De Chirico. That's a fight I could easily see being made. Who else you got? You see a lot of guys matched up. Do you want to do Jacob Malcoon versus Dusko Turovich? For some reason, the UFC respects this guy Dusko. They give him main card fights. I think maybe it has something to do with the fact that they know he's always live to be knocked out, and that makes for a good show. Maybe you put him in there with Malcoon if you want to give him more of a grappling-based fighter, or you give him the Russian Kopylov, who's coming off that big victory as well. Jonathan Martinez goes out there and gets the finish over Cub Swanson. One of the few fights where you will see a fighter go out there and stop the fight via leg kicks. He was landing some brutal kicks. You guys know I've always been a big fan of Jonathan Martinez's. I think that he's a stud. He's a fighter that's been under the radar for a long time, and I think that he's a fighter that you're really going to start to see get some notoriety and start to get to some exposure. And of course, the first step to that is going out there and taking out a legend in Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson, you guys, we talked about it. I didn't like the fact that Cub Swanson was coming off a long layoff at the age that he's at, creeping up to 40 years old, cutting weight. That is all a recipe for disaster, right? If you guys study the sport, you know that fighters that come in that situation, there's not a lot of success going on there. Let's see. We're going to slide back over to the bantamweight division, and we're going to talk about who would be a good fight for Jonathan Martinez, because I think it's time that Jonathan Martinez starts to get some big fights. Which, again, don't get me wrong, the Cub Swanson fight was a big fight, but I really want to see him fight some stiff competition. He's been in there with some okay opponents, but let's see. Where's he at right now? As Adrian Yanez is kind of sticking out to me. We slide past Adrian Yanez. But where's Jonathan the Dragon Martinez was currently the 29th ranked bantamweight on Tapology, and we're going to slide above him and take a look. Let's see here. I'm going to slide past Davey Grant. Casey Kenny coming off 2 losses, a very talented fighter, but coming off 2 losses. Cody Stamen coming off that victory over Eddie Wineland. Is that a fight that we want to see? Wouldn't mind to see that. Cody's been in there with some very stiff talent throughout the years. Cody Stamen is a fight that wouldn't be a bad one at all. If you want to give Jonathan Martinez even a larger step up, or as far as just from it being a bigger name in the game. We talked about a Sansao earlier. Does he get another chance to go in there? Do they want to slow play Martinez anymore? Give him an aging fighter that he can go out there and beat and look to build his name up more so? Give him Rafaela Sansao? I don't necessarily want to see that. I would actually also like to see Adrian Yanez battled Jonathan Martinez. That's a fight that I would have no problem with as well. That's a fight that seems very entertaining for me from a striking standpoint. I would love to see Adrian Yanez versus Jonathan Martinez. I don't know if the UFC feels that's a little bit too much of a jump up for Martinez. I don't think it is. Martinez has been winning a lot of fights in the UFC. I think that's a fight that you could make with no problems. All right, and then we go to the main event. Alexa Grasso defeats Viviane Araujo. Now, I am very happy. You guys know, if you remember my breakdown, I'm very happy that I stuck with my Grasso pick. You guys know I was back and forth on this. I've been taking a lot of dogs in these main event spots, these underdogs, a lot of dogs in the main events, and I was close to taking Viviane in the spot because I do believe that she's a very talented fighter. But stylistically, the more I broke down tape, this was Grasso's fight, in my opinion. I felt in a 5-round fight especially, Grasso, she has great cardio. I've seen Viviane slow down in the past. I like the more straight shots of Grasso going into this matchup. You know, Viviane looks to land those big power shots. She looks to slam her opponent down to the mat and this and that. And we saw her get some takedowns, but it played out like I thought it would. I thought Grasso would get back up to her feet. She's very nimble. She moves well. And then I thought that she would start to jab up Viviane with the straight shots, but she did more than that. She was landing some nasty combinations, and she won the unanimous decision on one judge's scorecard, 50-45. Two other judges gave 1 round to Viviane, and no action there. But again, another fight that we picked correctly, and we picked a lot of fights correctly on this card. Another solid event for us, another profitable event. Who's going to be next for Alexa Grasso? Let's go slide over to the flyweight division of the women's side of things. A division that can always use some talent working its way towards the top, where you have the Bullet Shevchenko up there. So Alexa Grasso ranked 5th here on Tapology's rankings. Again, this is Tapology's rankings, not the UFC rankings. Who is next for Grasso? Talia Santos, we know she's coming off a loss, but that doesn't really mean much. A lot of people thought that she won that fight against Shevchenko. Her stock went up in that fight. I think that she can easily be matched up with the fighter coming off a victory. If people look at that like a victory, I think Talia Santos versus Alexa Grasso is a perfect fight to make. In fact, that is a fight I would love to see, and I think that is the one to make. So I will stick with that, and very interested to see how that fight would play out. Talia Santos, a more refined and better version of Viviane, in my opinion, as far as the grappling goes. A little bit more polished with her BJJ, and I think that there would be more potential for Talia Santos to give Grasso problems down in the mat when she gets her there. Viviane needs to sharpen some things up, but she's had some success in the UFC, and props to her for making her way up to a main event fight in her UFC career. Doubt we'll ever see her there again. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up this breakdown of the UFC Vegas 62. Appreciate you guys as always. Again, you guys can catch my UFC 280 breakdown video already up here on the channel. Please hit that like button as you guys head out. Go follow me on all my social media, on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller _, on Twitter at the MMA Teller. You can email me at MMAFortuneTeller@gmail.com. And that's about it. I'm going to have a lot of content coming to you guys all throughout the week, especially on Instagram and Twitter. So go catch me over there. You guys know what time it is. It is fight week, and it's one of the bigger fight weeks that we've had in a long time. Hope you guys all have a blessed week, and you guys have a great weekend leading up to the fights, and it's going to be a fun one. All right, guys, signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.